Hey everyone, it's Ian from the Postal Hub podcast.
And Marek from Last Mile Experts.
And we are the Last Mile Prophets, and we are, guess what, turning our attention to Amazon. But because they've actually made a little bit of an announcement, who was it actually posted the blog post, Marek? It was there.
My old mate, Tim Collins, who's VP Amazon Logistics Worldwide. So, the top dog for Amazon Logistics.
Someone to be listened to. The post that they put on their corporate blog was about their quest to meet this, I'll quote directly, net zero carbon by 2040. Net zero carbon. Is that... They're not trying to copy DHL, are they? With DHL's very ambitious goal to go completely zero carbon emissions by, I think it's 2050, off the top of my head. So,
do you know what, Ian? Everyone's looking at this space. Even when I was at La Poste DPD several years ago now, there were plans for this and discussions about when you can do it by. It is very, shall we say, popular at the moment to talk about it, particularly COVID, I think, has made it even more.
We're coming across as very cynical about this, Marek, when it actually is a good news story in the whole, when you're talking about let's reduce the impact on the environment, especially this ties in with what we've discussed previously about the carbon emissions of to-door versus parcel locker. But I guess I've been a bit cynical when it comes to Amazon's push to be green overall when... Yeah, for example, when it bought 10,000 internal combustion engine vehicles for its DSP fleet in the USA. And then when it said we're going to go to next day, what was it, 1 day fulfillment prime as opposed to 2 days, and all the aircraft that they're putting up in the air, that's not hugely green in my opinion. But since then, they have actually gone and done things like they've ordered 100,000 delivery vehicles from Rivian. I think that the delivery date, though, is years in the future, though.
Yeah, I think, the way Amazon does things, even when Clarkson did the drone ad, you'd suddenly think that you can have your...
How dare you mention drones on this, matter?
I thought you'd love it. But again, this is partly PR, partly fact. I agree with you that we shouldn't be cynical because for whatever reason people do it, great. The only thing that I'd like to highlight, and you're not going to be surprised, and the listeners and viewers are not going to be surprised, is here they're talking about things like an electric fleet. They're talking about optimizing the vehicles in terms of, how the parcels are held in the vehicles and so on, and partnering with experts who can help them have, sustainable fuel. Of course, that's important, but the really big thing that's going to change the carbon footprint is, you know what I'm going to say?
Well,
do you want to say it for me?
No. Well, why would I deny you the pleasure, Marek?
So my favorite three letters, IDM, Interactive Delivery Management, that is the tool which will allow the carriers to deliver successfully first time. And if you match that with out of home, so lockers and PUDOs, you'll be having much more effective delivery. So I think that's the place to look at if we really want to reduce the carbon footprint.
There's a number of other things around the actual ordering process with Amazon. We've talked about previously Amazon Day, which is where you can have all your deliveries consolidate on all your Amazon deliveries consolidated to 1 day. And little things like that, we have to be really built into the entire product selection and checkout process so that the customers know about it and the customers are aware of these options and are even aware of the benefits of these options. I mean, speaking as a customer, I'll be happy to choose more environmentally friendly options if it fits in with what I need and the customer experience and so on and so forth.
Absolutely. And there is one other thing, Ian, with the same day products, particularly the fresh delivery, that's based on localized stock at this point in Whole Foods markets and other, let's say, associated retail networks, which is pretty good as well for the carbon footprint because the journey that goes is very short. I think particularly when the customer goes there anyway to pick it up. So I would say there are other things that are more important. This is very visible and it's good that they're doing it, of course. Having said that, my cynical hat's coming back on again.
Well, let's leave the cynical hat on because there's been a talk in the USA about Jeff Bezos being called before a congressional hearing or whatever they call it in the USA. So there is a lot more attention being paid to what's happening in Amazon's, especially their US operations. Even their German operations, we've seen there have been strikes recently. And then, of course, the French operations, which were basically shut down during the peak of the pandemic. So there's a lot more, what's the word? There's more attention being paid to Amazon than there was previously, especially, in my opinion, since it's no longer just a place where you buy books. It's a company that will fulfill, it will deliver, and all those other things that Amazon does.
Well, as per the book, it's the everything store. I think that's what they seek to do, to be able to serve every possible need. I think we're going to do another VC on an interesting area, which is this whole pharma area. That would be another example. But if we put our cynical hats on, then one might say that posts like this by Tim are part of making their image look good. And it's great that they're doing it. At the end of the day, let's get real in terms of the effect of these individual things. I mean, I had one other thing. In a country like Poland, I don't know how it is in the US, how they make their electricity, but in Poland, it's probably 90-odd% coal generated, which isn't particularly clean, I'd say.
You might not rate it as 100% green, but I think there's an argument that says that even generating electricity from coal is better than generating energy in a car from burning fossil fuels. But that's not an area where I'm an expert, Mark, and I'm certainly not going to nail my flag to the mast, nail my colours to the mast, whatever the phrase is, over this one. But I want to make a quick comment, and that is that Amazon is behind in the green stakes. Okay, Amazon is a leader in so many ways. When it comes to the environment and being green, they are way behind. They're behind the posts, Mark, in my opinion. When you look at some of the postal operators out there, everybody except Royal Mail, who for some reason...
We can have a bit of a debate. Maybe this is going to be for our next VC.
But in all seriousness, when you look at how posts like Deutsche Post and the like have electrified their fleets compared to the electrification of Amazon, Amazon's behind. Okay, now when it comes to out of home, I will say, Amazon's doing better than a lot of posts, but I'm just putting it out there that whilst we often accuse posts of legacy thinking, I'm getting it in first, Matic, before you get to say it. When it comes to this particular part, the electrification of fleets and those sorts of things, I'd say that there are posts out there that are well ahead of Amazon for now.
Well, guess what? One might say that it's actually legacy thinking to invest in electric vehicles when you can achieve a much bigger effect through IDM and out of home.
Of course, if you're using an electric vehicle to deliver to a parcel like a bank, Mark, you're in green heaven, right?
Absolutely. I think this is where we can agree. The electric vehicle is the icing on the cake, and particularly if that vehicle is super smart and autonomous and all the things we discussed. But for now, perhaps we can agree on this, that the two go together. From what I remember with our webinar with Rafał Brzoska from InPost, wasn't it around about 3 to 4 times better in terms of carbon footprint, reporting the latest data. The data I've got is actually even more than that, but that's old data, which maybe isn't as good.
I mean, it is impressive, but just to cover off quickly, so the things that Amazon's looking at, things like maximising the efficiency on their current vehicles. I'm not sure there's a huge amount you can do with that, because we've been talking about that in the postal sector for years and years. Remember there was a statistic, you might remember this, Matic, from your DPD days. Pump up the tyres in your delivery vehicles and you'll save up to 5% in fuel. Do you remember those sorts of statistics? I met a guy who ran a courier company. He said, we tried that across the entire fleet, made zero difference.
But Ian, actually, we really did do that.
Yeah.
And it's not just the tyres, it's not having your aircon all the time if you don't need it.
Yeah.
It's about even things like not having your window open if you don't need it. But the really important one when we were looking at it actually was about, putting your foot on the accelerator.
Driver training and,
So a lot of stuff can be done, with some pretty basic training and getting people on board. When I look, by the way, in the post, there's actually sub-pages. And, they've got robots there, they've got AI and optimizing routes. So it's pretty complex. And I think all of that stuff is great. But maybe this is for another VC.
I think it definitely is, because we're running over time now, Matic. So we do need to wrap it up. But comment below, have I been unnecessarily harsh on Amazon? Are there posts that are ahead of Amazon? I'd love to hear people's thoughts and comments on this particular topic. Marek Ruzhetsky from Last Mile Experts, thanks for being part of the Last Mile Profits today.
Thanks, Ian. Thank you, everyone. Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed this episode of The Last Mile Profits.
Make sure you subscribe, hit the subscribe button and also the notifications bell so that you get a notification every time we add a new video to this channel. Look forward to sharing more stuff with you on The Last Mile Profits.